Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 1, Monster. This video is the first in a series of videos where I review episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, so I have to give a spoiler warning for Fear the Walking Dead up to Season 2, Episode 1. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So during the whole first half of the episode, I kept thinking to myself how much I like this show, and I really don't understand all the hate the show gets. And although this is going to be really unpopular thing for me to say, but if I'm being completely honest with myself, I really must admit that I really do like this show better than The Walking Dead. I realize I've actually been anticipating this show's return much more than I did The Walking Dead's return. So I was thinking really hard about why it is that I like this show so much more than everyone else seems to, where everyone else seems to hate it. And the best thing I could come up with is that both shows are zombie apocalypse shows. And this show seems to focus more on the apocalypse side rather than the zombie side. And that's why I like it so much more. This show is larger in scope when it comes to the world falling apart and focusing more on what ordinary people would do if the world ended. And I really like apocalyptic films, or like The Stand, rather than post-apocalyptic where you actually see the world falling apart. Now, some people were complaining that Fear the Walking Dead would lose its edge now that the zombie apocalypse is well on its way. However, I still get the feel that this world is falling apart. And I honestly think these characters are a lot more clearly developed and more interesting than those in The Walking Dead, which some come off as too much of like comic book characters for my taste. Plus, I like that this show isn't based on a comic book and it's doing its own thing, which personally I think gives it a lot more freedom to be a bit more realistic. And in particular, I'm really excited about the Season 2 storyline about them trying to make it on a boat. However, as far as I know, this show could end up being just as bad in the future. Maybe later this season, Travis will crawl under a dumpster for safety. Who knows? But I'm crossing my fingers that it will remain good and get better. And to be honest, this episode gives me a lot of hope. So getting into the episode, this was an amazing start to the episode, which really had me enthralled, where we see them at night trying to ferry people to the boat. Madison, Travis, and Chris are still on the beach, and Nick goes to pick them up while, LA's being bombed, everything's on fire, there's bombs going off, explosions, and zombies break through to the house and surround them. It was just really exciting. And we get this great zombie kill where Nick takes the motor and rams it in the zombie's head. This should keep the people who are saying, oh, there's never enough zombies on Fear the Walking Dead happy. But I myself am perfectly happy with less zombies. I don't really mind either way, but this scene was amazing. So they make it to the boat where they found that they have enough fuel and supplies to survive for quite some time. And although they are a bit light on food. So then they come across a small boat with stranded people waving their arms, pleading for help. Madison and Alicia's immediate reaction is that they want to pick them up and help them. So Madison goes to Shran, who's driving the boat, and tells him to stop, but he outright refuses, and when she presses the matter, he threatens to throw them off. Alicia also pleads with Travis for help, but Travis goes to Shran and actually agrees with him that there's nothing they can do. And this really surprised me, as I thought Travis was the naive one willing to help people at his own expense, but it looks like he's growing as a person and actually more tough than Madison, which is quite a change. And I think he had a really good explanation as to why they didn't help them, because they barely have enough supplies for 7 people. If they take on a whole boatload of people, they won't really be helping them, and it's a big risk because one of them could get sick. Anyway, this was a really howling scene as the people on the boat had to just stand by and do nothing while a boatload of people were screaming for help. Man, it was just so intense. So Shran's plan apparently is to go to San Diego where the military are stationed, but Madison is convinced they won't be able to help them, but Shran insists on going anyway. So Shran explains to Nick later on that there's really no safe place left anymore, so why not go there? However, Salazar mentions to Madison that he thinks Shran has an ulterior motive for going to San Diego, and he wants to find out what it is, so Madison suggests that they keep an eye on him, and he explains that he's already on it. And earlier we got the scene where Shran was talking to himself, and Madison jokingly suggests he might be going crazy, but I think they really may be building this conflict with Shran, whom I still insist is an extremely interesting character, and I think they could do really interesting things with him in the future. So we also get the storyline with Chris being stricken into silence and mopey because his mother's death, which is understandable and I think makes total sense from her character standpoint. That being said, I wasn't particularly interested in this storyline. Chris was always my least favorite character. A lot of people like to pick on Alicia as being naive, but I actually buy her character, where Chris I just find annoying. So they have a funeral service for his mother, and Travis talks kindly about her and then invites Chris to speak a few words, and he just dumps her body in the ocean, which I actually thought was a good step for him because it was a way for him to let go. But I guess not, as he hits Travis and yells that he shot her, which is him being quite stupid as he says things like, "Oh, I could have helped her," which is ridiculous. She was bit by a frickin' zombie. How in the hell do you think you could have saved her? Anyway, but speaking of people acting stupid, we also get a storyline with Alicia talking to this guy on the radio who claims to be on a dinky fishing boat with his brother and his girlfriend. And at first I thought this was just going to be an irrelevant side plot about Alicia talking to some doomed guy and building a connection with him and dealing with him dying afterwards, as she was helpless to help him, until she starts to mentioning things like the type of boat that they're on, that it's a huge yacht and they have plenty of water and supplies. At that stage, I knew that this guy was playing her and was planning to attack. And as soon as she mentioned those things, I was like, "Oh, you idiot, don't tell him that." And then the hook came when he claimed that his ship was sinking, which was very obviously BS. But he got her to tell him where they are. But when Alicia goes to Travis saying that they need to help them, as it's only 3 people, Shran overhears and flips the fuck out and asks what she told these people. And Alicia continues being stupid, by not mentioning that he told this stranger that they were on a freaking yacht with plenty of supplies and gave away their position. Now, you may be a bit harsh on Shran for scolding them and saying this is my goddamn boat, but he has a really good point. He tells them that they don't get it, and they really don't, especially not Alicia, that the other survivors out there will be looking to prey on them for supplies, and there will be roaming gangs out there, and you can't trust anyone, and Alicia may have just very well screwed them by giving away their position. And what's worse, when she tells the guy, she goes to contact the guy again and says, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." And he responds by saying, "Oh, don't worry, Alicia. We've got you. I'll see you soon." That was a really creepy scene. I loved it. It creeped me the fuck out. But she was being even more stupid by not telling anyone, "Hey, this guy just said he's coming for us." Anyway, I thought it was interesting what the guy said about going to Hawaii, as I was just thinking that they should probably head out to the South Pacific and find an island. Maybe not Hawaii, maybe one less populated with less walkers, and try to go there. Of course, myself living in New Zealand, I was thinking they should go to New Zealand or Australia, as these countries are quite isolated, less populated, and may not be hit as hard by the zombie apocalypse. But alas, I doubt they'll do anything like that, and will probably stay around the United States area. So next we see Chris jump in the water to go for a swim. People think he's committing suicide or something, so Nick jumps in after him, but when he finds out he's just fucking around, he goes for a swim as well. And we get this great scene with Nick swimming in the water where all of a sudden a zombie comes up and swims towards him. So this will also please the zombie fans. We get to see swimming zombies now. So then they start freaking out and Travis gets the dinghy to save Chris, and they find the wreckage of a boat that was attacked, and that's where the zombies are from. So Nick, for some reason, goes to the boat to retrieve its log and almost gets eaten by a zombie in the process. So I have to think that this log will come into play sometime in the future. Otherwise, why bother with it? But Sharan detects a boat approaching them fast at 25 knots and tells Madison they can only do 20 knots, and that's only if they push the engines really hard. The alarms go off and Madison gets Travis and the others back on the boat and then tells Sharan to get the hell out of there. And when Travis asks what's going on, Madison explains that the people who did that to the wrecked boat are coming back. Dun dun dun. End. So my rating for Monster out of 10 is a 9. Excellent. This episode was great. Started with a bang with an amazing action sequence, then went to create an amazing sense of tension as they don't know where to go and have to deal with leaving people to die. And you get the external threat with the pirates that Alicia was stupid enough to give away their position to, as well as the internal threat with Sharan and Salazar, as Sharan is acting a bit of a dick. But on the other hand, he does really have a point, and in some way is smarter than these idiots like Alicia. So it's a very interesting dynamic. So overall, it's pretty damn effective. So, man, I am so glad that Fear the Walking Dead is back. So that's it for my review of Monster. Be sure to check back here every week as I review episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, and be sure to check out my channel for many more videos on shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, Better Call Saul, Vikings, and more, and be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.